Welcome back to Aliyah Yomi. Today we're going to be learning Emor Chamishi, the fifth Aliyah in Parshas Emor. Our Aliyah runs from Perek Chav Gimel Pasuk Chav Gimel to Pasuk Lamed Beis. It is 10 psukim long. The topic of our Aliyah is the festivals part 2. The festivals we're going to be focusing on today is Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. The Torah tells us about Rosh Hashanah in 3 psukim. It's going to be on the first day of the 7th month. That this day is special. It is Shabboson Zichron Trua Mikra Kodesh. It is a day of rest. It is a day of remembering the Trua, or the blowing, or the sound of this blowing, and it is a holy convocation without work being done. That's the first section. And the next part, which is the remainder of the Aliyah, is on the 10th of that month is Yom Kippurim. It's the day of Yom Kippur, and we're told that V'nisem es nafshay seichem. You're supposed to afflict your souls. No work is to be done, and it is a day of atonement. Lachaper aleichem. The Torah goes so far as to tell us that a person who will not afflict themselves, asher lo yiseuneh be'etzma yom zeh v'nichrasa me'ameh, that person will be cut off from their people. It's a very serious and significant punishment. Any person who does malacha on this day will also suffer those consequences. We're told that it's a day of Shabbos on rest. No work is to be done. On the 9th of the month, from the evening to evening, you will rest. That's the way that the Aliyah goes. So a lot of basic questions. Number one is, we know the events behind Pesach and Matan Torah in the previous Aliyah, but we don't know the events behind Rosh Hashanah. Why are we celebrating Rosh Hashanah? Why are we commemorating it? So Psikta tells us that it was in fact the day that Adam Harishon was created. The world was created on the 25th of Elul, and 6 days later, on the 6th day of creation, was the 1st of Tishrei, which is the day when Adam Harishon was created. In a certain sense, the most basic idea is the day of your creation is a day of judgment. Do you validate you coming around the cycle again, and walking around the year cycle one more time? Have you done what is necessary to receive a new grant of life? That's what happens on Rosh Hashanah. Rav Sorotzkin does point out that it also was the day in which, if you look at the Gemara in Sanhedrin, which Adam Harishon also sinned as well and was forgiven, which means to say that there's a certain element of sinning and forgiving on Rosh Hashanah itself, and so therefore it is also that day of atonement to that degree as well. Now, why is Rosh Hashanah a day of Zichron Trua, remembering the Trua? So Rashi brings two possibilities, and that is that it is the day we remember the psukim of Zichronos and Shofros, which we mention in the Rosh Hashanah Musaf davening today. And those are there to remind us of the sacrifice that we were willing to make at Akedas Yitzchak. That is what we're reminding ourselves then through those psukim, or HaKadosh Baruch Hu, as well through those psukim. However, the Gemara Rosh Hashanah does point out that this might be a remez, might be a hint to the fact that during the weekday we do blow the shofar on Rosh Hashanah, but on a Shabbos, the Chazal decided not to do it to avoid the concern of any chilul, any desecration of Yom Tov, which could be done. And that being the case, the Zichron Trua, remembrance of Trua, is a hint to the fact that we are going to that we don't do it all the time, that we don't do it always on a Shabbos as well, even though that from the Torah mandate that was not the case. What is interesting about that is that the Gemara does say that a year that does not have blowing of shofar at the beginning is going to be a bad year at the end. Why? And the Gemara then goes on to clarify, but that's only if the reason we didn't blow was for some other reason other than Shabbos. But if we don't blow in the beginning of the year because it's Shabbos on Rosh Hashanah, that's not a problem as well. Why not? Why is such a year a problem if you don't blow at the beginning? Because of Irabuv HaSatan, that the Satan is going to be confused. What's the confusion of the Satan? The Ram suggests that the reason why we blow the shofar is Uru Yesheni Mishanaschem, quoting the pasuk, that the sleepers are supposed to be awoken when they hear the siren. But another possibility the Tosafos says, is that when the Satan hears the shofar, he thinks it's the shofar of Mashiach. However, there's a more simple possibility, and that is that Chiyah of Israel, who are so concerned for the mitzvahs of Hashem, that we're going to even sacrifice one of our greatest measures that will help us in our process of coming closer to Hashem, which is the shofar on Rosh Hashanah, which reminds us of and Hashem of all these incredible things, and yet we sacrifice that Rosh Hashanah for the sake of Shabbos. The Satan then, he gets very confused. Wait a second, why are these Jews being so careful and so perfectionist when it comes to their performance of mitzvahs? That is what's confusing to him, and that's why on a day when the year begins on a Shabbos and there's no shofar blown, that's not going to be a bad year, because the Satan is confused in the first place as to why they are doing that in the first place, even without the shofar. Now, why are Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur? Why is the shofar and Rosh Hashanah is the primary mitzvah as it seems in the Torah, and the fasting Yom Kippur is the primary mitzvah as the Torah describes it? So those diamond in the Torah points out that there are two types of corruption when it comes to service of God. One is the corruption of the thought, another one is the corruption of indulgences or lust. So corruptions of the body. So corruptions of thought have to be corrected on Rosh Hashanah. That's when we talk about the ideas, the zichra and trua, what do we stand for, what do we sacrifice for, who are we, where we're going. That's Rosh Hashanah. On Yom Kippur, it's more about sacrificing the indulgences of the body. We're going to take away all the bodily pleasures on Yom Kippur in order to be able to put that into check. So both the body and the mind are being rectified through the process of Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. Now, why was Yom Kippur set as a day of fasting? What was the event behind Yom Kippur? So it turns out, if you do the counting, there is, Rashi does this in the Torah for us, that if you count between the day that the Torah was given, 40 days. The Torah was given, a debate in the Gemara, but assuming 6th of Sivan right now, we fast forward, and then there's a miscount, and there's the Chet HaEgel 40 days later. That happens on the 17th of Tammuz. That's why we have that fast day on that day. Moshe Rabbeinu comes down, breaks the luchos, the whole business, kills the perpetrators, goes back up. Another 40 days from the 28th from the 18th of Tammuz all the way down to the 29th of Av is the next 40 days in which he prays to avert the destruction of Israel and Hashem be with them directly. Moshe Rabbeinu then goes up the third set of 40 days from the Rosh Chodesh Elul all the way till Rosh Yom Kippur. Yom Kippur is the day of the full atonement for the Chet HaEgel, when he comes down with the instructions for the second Mishkan. That is why it's a day of atonement, because it was the original day of atonement as well. Finally, why at the end of the Aliyah does it tell us that if a person fasts on Yom Kippur on the 9th from the evening to evening? Well, that's not how we do it. We don't fast for 2 days. The Gemara in Bracha says, no, based on a diuk, or the way of reading the Pesukim more carefully, that really it refers to a person who eats on Erev Yom Kippur is a person who's going to be considered like they are fasting on Yom Kippur 2 days in a row. So they're eating on Yom Kippur as a mitzvah to such a degree as like the fasting in Yom Kippur. It's almost like the matter and antimatter. It's the black and the white of the two spaces which combine. Why is that? So it could possibly be that is what is known as the Chatzi Lachem. Every festival has an element of a part that we enjoy, that is, so to speak, the pleasures of the human being. And then there's the Chatzi Lashem, the part which is more cerebral, intellectual, value-based part of the Yom Tov as well. Most Yom Tovim have that by the festivals and the sleep, which is part of the experience. And then there's the davening and the Torah study. But when it comes to Yom Kippur, it's really completely spiritual. But the other side of it, the flip side of that, is the Erev Yom Kippur, which is serving Hashem through indulgence, through involvement in this world, then desisting from this world. Those are the two pieces that come together. And finally, one last question is, why is the Inu? You'll notice that the affliction, the self-affliction on Yom Kippur, is mentioned twice in our Aliyah. It's mentioned at the beginning of the Aliyah and then at the end of the Aliyah as well. So once in the context of Karbanos, unlike any of the other festivals. Why is that? So perhaps the suggestion is that the not eating in Yom Kippur is itself like a korban. On the one hand, it's the mitzvah of the day. On the other hand, it also is a korban, a sacrifice of the day. Why is it a sacrifice of the day? Because while a person is fasting and their bodily energy and their fat and their blood is being diminished, it's like they put that on the mizbech. As we said, especially Yirotz on the night before a fast day and the end of Mincha, there is such a statement which we make, is that let all the diminished body fat and fluid because of not eating, we'll let that all be a sacrifice like a korban on the mizbech. And that's what we're doing over here as well. With this, we conclude the fifth Aliyah in Parshas Emor. In the meantime, a wonderful and meaningful day.